Did you know that the Muslims have the second biggest organization in the world? And did you know that the person who inspired its creation was a terrorist, probably supported by the state of Israel? Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Ummah Matters. My name is Firdaus Khan Nangarhari. The Ottoman Caliphate or the Osmani Khilafah decided to join the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, in World War II against the Allies. So France, Britain, Russia, and the US. Many people argue that the Osmani Khilafah did not need to join World War I or take a side between the powers.
The Ottomans joining the wrong side in World War I, they joined the side of Germany against the Allied forces. They didn't need to have gotten involved in this war. You could have remained neutral as the Middle East. You didn't have to get involved. And they got involved with the wrong side.
But they did took a part, and the side that they chose lost the war. Few years later, the Khilafah was abolished. The Ummah was without a Khalifa. After this, throughout the Muslim world, many movements started in the hope to revive the lost Khilafah. But they were unsuccessful. In the decades after the abolishment of the Khilafah, after the World War II, the State of Israel was created. And many years later, there was a big war between some Muslim countries, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, and Israel. This conflict took place in 1967. 2 years later, on the 21st of August, 1969, a terrorist by the name of Denis Michael Rohan attacked the Aqsa Mosque and set fire to the main prayer hall, which was within the Al-Aqsa compound. The fire destroyed much of the southern and southeastern parts of Masjid al-Aqsa. It also destroyed the 12th century minbar of Salahuddin. Now that minbar itself has an amazing history. It was initially built by Nuruddin Zangi. He was a Muslim leader who fought against the Crusaders. Nuruddin Zangi was a visionary leader. He gathered the best of craftsmen of his time and asked them to build a very fine minbar for a special purpose. The vision of Nuruddin was that when Muslims recapture Al-Aqsa, this minbar should be placed in Masjid al-Aqsa. Nuruddin could not see this happen in his life. About 20 years later, when Salahuddin Ayyobi, he captured Jerusalem, he fulfilled Nuruddin's vision and brought that minbar to the Masjid al-Aqsa. Now this minbar was a significant representation of how the Muslims of the past envisioned and recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders. The minbar stood in Masjid al-Aqsa for about 800 years. That until this terrorist, Denis Michael Rohan, attacked Masjid al-Aqsa and the minbar was burned. Many Palestinians said that the arson was carried by the blessings of Israel. The argument that does support this claim is that the minbar itself and the Masjid al-Aqsa have such an inspirational story for the entire Muslim world. Before I go further into the details of what Israel did to Denis Michael Rohan, I would like to first talk about some positive outcomes out of this negative event. This attack on Masjid al-Aqsa is seen as the catalyst for the creation of the OIC, or the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The OIC is the second largest international organization after the United Nations. It has 57 member states and 4 different continents. It was established on the 25th of September 1969, which equals 12th of Rajab 1389. The establishment of the OIC happened in a summit of Muslim representatives of 24 Muslim countries which took place in Rabat in Morocco. They agreed that the Muslim countries should work together in different fields like science, technology, culture, and of course, spirituality. About 6 months later, in 1970, the first Islamic conference of foreign ministers was held in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And in 1972, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation was founded. The OIC has its headquarters in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and it has regional offices in different cities like New York, Geneva, Brussels, Kabul, Iraq, and Indonesia. If you read the Charter of OIC, Article 21 states that the headquarters of the General Secretariat shall be in Jeddah until the liberation of the city of Al-Quds, so that it will become the permanent headquarters of the OIC. Now back to the member. It was made by Nuruddin Zangi. He had a vision, and 20 years later, it was made a reality by Salahuddin. Now the dream of OIC having its headquarters in Al-Quds was envisioned by Muslim leaders with the creation of the OIC. It sounds like a similar goal or dream or vision like that of Nuruddin Az-Zangi. But when will it turn into a reality? Only Allah knows. Today, many Muslims are unaware that the OIC even exists, but yet it represents 1.8 billion people, or about 25% of the world's population. The OIC member states have a young population which are about 50% or more than that between the ages of 0 and 24 years. Within the OIC members, the oil-rich countries, they possess about 58% of global crude oil. So the OIC does have a significant weight, and it aims to be the collective voice of the Muslim world. The OIC has different departments. There's a department for economic affairs, political affairs, humanitarian affairs, science and technology, and also a specific department for Palestine and Al-Quds affairs. Within the OIC, the Islamic Summit is the highest level decision-making body. It is attended by the leaders of the member states. And these summit meetings, they take place in different geographical locations. They are mainly divided in 3 blocks. So you have Arab bloc, the Asian bloc, and the African bloc. The OIC has tried to help the Ummah in different matters. If there is a conflict between Muslim countries, the OIC tries to resolve it. They also try to improve education systems, reduce poverty, and all of the other noble causes that humanitarian organizations have. That being said, because there are a lot of internal struggles in Muslim countries, I believe most of the OIC's energy is used to solve those issues. And maybe that is also the reason that the OIC's global impact is limited. There is a lot of criticism of the OIC. People call it ineffective, people call it slow. It is accused of weak coordination, ineffective in the implementation of the decisions it has made, and a divided foreign policy. For example, some Muslim countries want to have diplomatic relations with Israel, while other Muslim countries reject this. Another example is that of personal issues that arise between Muslim countries. Like we had the conflict between Iraq and Iran. We have today the disagreements between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and so on. All of these impact the effectiveness of the OIC. Now we must remember that today the Ummah's problems are not entirely the fault of the OIC. We Muslims have been lagging behind in the fields of science and technology for centuries. The crises in the Muslim world are not something new. The OIC or any other global organization cannot fix them in just a few decades. But on the other hand, the OIC is an international organization. It has good relations with other international organizations such as the European Union, the United States. It has 5 observer countries like Russia and Thailand. And we should keep in mind that the biggest organization in the world, the United Nations, even that is not capable of solving all the world's problems. Big organizations are slow because they have to deal with a lot of people coming from different backgrounds, having conflicting interests, and that on a global scale. So that makes it very slow. Now coming back to the terrorist who inspired the creation of the OIC. Denis Michael Rohan, he attacked the Islamic holy site. And the majority of the Muslim world says that he was able to do so because of the blessings of Israel. When the attack took place, about 2 days later, he was arrested by the Israeli authorities. They tried him in a court and labeled him as an insane person. I personally believe that you can call him a radical, a terrorist, but you cannot call him an insane person. If you call him an insane person, you should call many other terrorists also insane and send them for treatment. An insane person is not capable of carrying such an attack. So the court tried him, called him insane, sent him to a mental institution, and about 5 years later, he was sent back to Australia for further treatment. Because of this person, the member of Salahuddin was lost. Many Muslims and leaders put a lot of effort, gathered skilled people, and recreated this member. But the original is lost. Now, of course, this is something that has happened in the past, but it did trigger the creation of the OIC. The OIC became a platform on which the Muslim world was politically represented. Before it was the Khilafah. And after the abolishment of the Khilafah, the OIC is the platform which represents the collective voice of the Muslim world globally. Before I finish the video, I would like to say something. I personally think that Israel needs to improve its relations with the Palestinians. It needs to be a good neighbor for the Palestinians. Because whether they want it or not, it is a very realistic scenario that the OIC or its reformed form will become more powerful in the future. It will be a powerful, big international organization. It will become a strong representation of the Muslim world. And Israel, as a small country, will not be able to deal with heavy sanctions coming from a powerful international organization. The support of the United States is not going to be there for Israel forever. Even today, there are US politicians who believe that the aid of the United States for the state of Israel should stop. And if the Israeli leaders are wise enough, they must implement the two-state proposal and agree to become good neighbors to the Palestinians. Thank you for your time. See you in the next video.